Hey everyone, Willie here. Washington, D.C. is reeling from a political detonation that has shattered norms and redrawn battle lines overnight. We are witnessing history in its raw, unfiltered form. This is not a symbolic gesture. This is not empty political theater. For the third time in 6 years, a formal impeachment resolution has been introduced against former and now once again President Donald J. Trump. But forget everything you think you know about the previous two proceedings. This time, the game has changed entirely. This time, according to sources deep inside the House Judiciary Committee, investigators are holding what they describe as irrefutable and documentary proof. When nearly half of the entire House of Representatives, 212 members, can gather their signatures on an impeachment resolution in less than 72 hours, you know a catastrophic event has just erupted at the heart of American power. This is the sound of a breaking point. Strap in, because what triggered this firestorm and what comes next will define a generation. So, what seismic event could possibly force such unprecedented bipartisan action? The catalyst was a classified intelligence briefing delivered to key congressional members on January 15th. That briefing revealed alleged evidence that the administration coordinated with foreign financial interests to actively obstruct ongoing federal investigations. The documents, obtained independently by multiple congressional committees, are reported to show direct, contemporaneous communications between White House officials and overseas banking entities during some of the Justice Department's most sensitive proceedings. Let's be unequivocally clear. This is not some performative partisan skirmish for the cable news ticker. According to eminent constitutional scholars, this represents a potential violation of the president's oath of office at a magnitude and clarity unseen since the Watergate era. When Republican committee chairmen, the very men and women who have led the defense through every prior controversy, publicly break ranks and sign an impeachment resolution against their own party's standard bearer, you know something foundational has shifted. Loyalty has met its match in evidence. To understand the full staggering picture, we must rewind the tape. Tensions between this White House and the legislative branch have been on a dangerous, escalating trajectory for months. The friction points are multiple. Executive orders perceived to bypass congressional authority, bitter clashes over contentious cabinet appointments, and, most persistently, growing alarms about complex foreign financial entanglements that career national security and financial investigators first flagged as a potential vulnerability as early as last September. But the powder keg found its spark on January 12th. A career whistleblower from within the Treasury Department's own ranks provided House investigators with a meticulously compiled dossier. 847 pages of internal communications, emails, and, most critically, international transaction records. Three separate sources who reviewed this material in a secure, soundproofed congressional facility, known as a SIF, have stated these documents allegedly show clear, repeated patterns of financial activity that move in direct, lockstep correlation with sudden shifts in federal enforcement action. Specifically, holds or pauses were placed on investigations into certain entities that had, just prior, made substantial payments to accounts linked to administration allies. The timing, according to those who saw it, was not merely suspicious, it was methodical. The pattern was undeniable. And the implications for abuse of power were immediately and chillingly clear to every lawmaker, Republican or Democrat, who examined the file. It is, frankly, surreal to watch elected officials from both parties unite in grave concern against a sitting president in a manner not witnessed since the 1970s. This is the level of gravity we are dealing with. But here is where the story transforms from concerning to critical. On January 14th, the House Judiciary Committee convened an emergency session behind the heavy sealed doors of a secure facility buried beneath the Capitol complex. What transpired in that room over the ensuing 6 hours would fundamentally and perhaps permanently alter the American political landscape. Members arrived expecting a standard, albeit serious, classified briefing on the ongoing probes. What they received instead was live testimony and documentary presentation that left even the most battle-hardened, decades-serving legislators visibly shaken. The most telling reaction came from Representative Gerald Whitmore, the Republican chairman from Ohio. This is the man who defended this president through two prior impeachments, who stood on the House floor and decried the first effort as a partisan witch hunt. Witnesses described Chairman Whitmore emerging from that January 14th meeting with a pallid, ashen complexion and a visibly unsteady demeanor. His hands were observed to be trembling. He walked past the gathered press corps in stony silence, offering no comment, proceeding directly to his office where he remained behind closed doors for hours. By 9 p.m. that very evening, his name, Gerald Whitmore, appeared on the formal impeachment resolution. Let that sink in. When a committee chairman from the president's own party appends his signature to an impeachment document, you know the evidence has crossed a threshold that political allegiance cannot bridge. The bombshell moment that likely triggered Whitmore's conversion came during the sworn testimony of Deputy Treasury Secretary Margaret Collins, an appointee of the current administration. According to three representatives present in the secure room, Collins was asked directly about the transaction records and the coordinated pattern of enforcement holds. Her answer prompted the committee to immediately call for additional security protocols. She stated, and we are quoting from a leaked transcript now confirmed by multiple outlets. The financial patterns were flagged by career, non-political analysts in October. However, instructions came from above to pause any formal documentation of these findings. The analysts were told to stand down. Their preliminary reports were shelved, and the corresponding investigations were frozen in place. Then came the fateful, breath-stealing question. Who gave those instructions? Deputy Secretary Collins paused. For 11 agonizing seconds, an eternity in a congressional hearing, there was only silence. Then, she uttered four words that sent electric shockwaves through the committee. I cannot answer that. Representative Diana Thornton, the Democrat from California and ranking member on the Oversight Committee, demanded immediate clarification, her voice slicing through the tense atmosphere. You are under oath, Deputy Secretary. Are you invoking executive privilege to avoid answering this committee's questions? Collins shook her head slowly. No, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I am telling you that answering that question would require me to discuss classified communications that bear on national security implications. I have been advised by counsel that I cannot proceed further without potentially compromising sensitive sources and methods. It was at this precise juncture that Chairman Whitmore, the Republican, leaned forward into his microphone. His voice, attendees recall, was low, measured, but thick with emotion. Deputy Secretary Collins, he began, I need you to understand the profound gravity of what you are telling this committee. Are you stating that the obstruction of a federal investigation has been classified as a national security matter? Are you informing us that someone in this administration determined that concealing a potential crime should be shielded by the same classification protocols designed to protect American intelligence operations abroad? Collins looked directly at him, her composure cracking. Mr. Chairman, I am telling you that I have been instructed not to answer questions regarding the chain of command for those financial holds. I am telling you that the classification decisions were made above my pay grade, and I am telling you that I am deeply, personally uncomfortable with the position in which I have been placed. The room fell into a state of absolute, tomb-like silence. Reporters who later obtained a clandestine audio recording from a member's phone captured 8 full seconds of utter stillness before Chairman Whitmore spoke again, his voice cracking with raw emotion as he addressed the entire committee. This is bigger than Watergate. This is obstruction wrapped in the flag of national security. Those 7 words were leaked to the press within the hour, and they have since become the rallying cry of this historic moment. Now, to grasp the monumental stakes, we must draw the chilling parallel. Recall what ultimately toppled President Richard Nixon. It was not the initial crime of the Watergate break-in, it was the cover-up, the systematic obstruction of justice, the abuse of presidential power to conceal wrongdoing from the American people, and the infamous Saturday Night Massacre, where he fired the special prosecutor investigating him. Republican senators eventually went to the White House and told Nixon he had to resign because the political support to protect him had evaporated. The votes simply weren't there anymore. The parallel today is unmistakable and profound. We are no longer debating policy differences, controversial rhetoric, or social media conduct. We are confronting allegations of direct interference with federal law enforcement to protect personal and political financial interests. We are examining the alleged use of classification, a sacred tool for protecting national secrets, to hide potential crimes from constitutional oversight. And crucially, this evidence, according to all accounts, originates not from partisan opposition researchers, but from career Treasury and financial officials who dutifully flagged the anomalies and were allegedly ordered to stand down. The evolving pattern across all 3 Trump impeachments is illuminating. In 2019, the first centered on alleged abuse of power regarding Ukraine, leveraging military aid for political investigations. Acquittal was along near-party lines. In 2021, the second addressed the January 6th Capitol attack. That time, 7 Republican senators voted to convict, a crack in the dam. Now, in 2025, we face a qualitatively different scenario. We have hard documentation, financial records with digital fingerprints. We have sworn testimony from administration insiders describing a coordinated effort to obstruct. And we have 47 House Republicans signing onto impeachment within hours of reviewing the evidence. The dam is not just cracked, it is breached. When a president is accused of abusing power in ways that threaten the constitutional order itself, even the staunchest partisan loyalty eventually meets a limit. Do not look away now. The most explosive ramifications are coming into view. Legal and political analysts across the spectrum are calling this a constitutional crisis unfolding in real time. Jonathan Turley, the George Washington University law professor who defended President Trump during the first impeachment, appeared on national television and made a stunning admission. These allegations, if substantiated, would represent obstruction at a level that cannot be defended on constitutional grounds, Turley stated. He emphasized that while presidents command broad executive authority, that power does not extend to interfering with ongoing federal investigations for personal financial benefit. The constitutional line is clear. The president cannot use classification authority to hide evidence of crimes from the branch of government charged with oversight. Lawrence Tribe, the renowned Harvard constitutional law scholar, echoed this, noting the third impeachment will be judged not by partisan calculations, but by the documentary record. We're past the point of he said, she said. This is about bank records with timestamps. This is about internal communications with dates and signatures. The evidence either exists or it doesn't, and everyone who has seen it is saying it exists. Even conservative legal voices are expressing profound alarm. Andrew McCarthy, a former federal prosecutor and staunch defender of executive power, wrote that these allegations strike at the core of what impeachment was designed to address. If a president uses the apparatus of government to shield personal financial dealings from federal scrutiny, that is precisely the abuse of power the founders anticipated. The concrete consequences are already cascading through the system. First, the political impact is immediate and devastating. The 212 signatures include 47 Republicans, 47 members of the president's own party who have now formally declared that impeachment proceedings must move forward. The conventional wisdom that Republican loyalty was unbreakable has been incinerated in a single weekend. Second, the financial and institutional implications are enormous. Global markets plunged 3.2% on Friday as news of the resolution spread, with the Dow Jones shedding over 1,000 points in a single session. International allies are questioning the stability of American governance. A Reuters poll found public support for holding impeachment hearings has skyrocketed to 61%, a 23-point swing in just 2 weeks. Third, the damage to government institutions is already profound. Career officials at Treasury, Justice, and State are reportedly lawyering up and creating extensive paper trails, preparing for the possibility they may be called to testify. The professional bureaucracy has shifted into self-preservation mode, a sign of profound internal crisis. This dynamic places the White House in an impossible bind. On one flank, they face immense pressure to maintain the fervent support of a base that views any criticism as betrayal, demanding a strategy of total defense, attacking the leaks as illegal, framing the event as a deep state conspiracy years in the making. On the other flank, they must contend with documented evidence that their own committee chairman has labeled as historic obstruction. The president's initial defense has followed the predictable playbook. On his social media platform, he denounced the resolution as a witch hunt orchestrated by radical left Democrats and weak rhinos who sold out their voters, claiming the records are fabricated by a deep state conspiracy. He specifically named all 47 Republican signatories, promising they would face political destruction in primary challenges. But here is the insurmountable problem with that defense, and there is no polite way to say this. The evidence does not come from Democrats. The whistleblower is a 23-year career Treasury official who served under 4 presidents of both parties. The transaction records are from major international banks. The damning, evasive testimony came from his own deputy Treasury secretary. When your defense requires you to attack the credibility of your own appointees and your own party's leadership, the argument has already collapsed. Legal experts immediately note that such a defensive posture is itself indicative of a consciousness of guilt. This crisis transcends one presidency. It is a stress test of the American constitutional framework crafted 235 years ago. If a president can obstruct an investigation and then classify that obstruction as a state secret, the very concept of executive accountability evaporates. There is no meaningful check on power if the president alone decides what Congress can and cannot see. Former Attorney General Eric Holder framed it with stark clarity on television. This isn't about partisan politics. This is about whether we remain a nation of laws that apply equally to everyone, including the president. If these allegations are proven and a president faces no consequences, we have effectively created a monarchy. The founders' entire design was to prevent exactly this. Senator Mitt Romney, one of the 7 Republicans who voted to convict in 2021, released a statement that resonates with constitutional solemnity. I have reviewed the classified materials available to senators. Every American who values our constitutional republic should be deeply concerned about what they reveal. The facts must be followed wherever they lead, regardless of political consequence. Our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual. This scenario is triggering absolute panic within Republican congressional leadership. Reports indicate Senate Minority Leader John Thune held multiple emergency conference calls over the weekend, with members torn between circling the wagons to attack the process and acknowledging that the evidence is too severe to dismiss without destroying the party's long-term credibility. The GOP is fracturing in real time, caught between loyalty to a leader and fidelity to the constitutional order they swore an oath to uphold. Simultaneously, the president's most ardent supporters are directing fury at the 47 Republican signatories, flooding social media with calls for primary challenges and labeling them traitors and deep state collaborators. Yet, the critical difference this time is the profile of those breaking ranks. It is not just the usual critics. It is committee chairmen. It is institutionalists. When those pillars fracture, the political calculus changes for every member still on the fence. Here is the stark reality as of this moment. 212 elected officials have just put their careers on the line to declare that a sitting president must face impeachment proceedings. 47 of them are from his own party. The triggering evidence consists of financial records with forensic authenticity, protected whistleblower testimony, and the sworn evasive answer of a deputy secretary who cited orders from above. This is no longer about political spectacle. It is about whether obstruction of justice can be legally cloaked in national security classification. It is a referendum on whether any person, even the president, is truly above the law. The next steps are already in motion. The House Judiciary Committee will gavel in its first public hearing on January 22nd. Multiple senior administration officials have been subpoenaed. The Treasury Department's Inspector General is preparing a report on the transaction patterns. The White House legal team is threatening to fight every subpoena in court, potentially invoking a blanket claim of executive privilege. American families are watching, waiting to see whether their representatives will prioritize the Constitution over party and the rule of law over temporary loyalty. The resolution is introduced. The signatures are dry. The evidence is compiled. For the first time in American history, we may witness an impeachment advance to the Senate with the critical, deciding votes provided by members of the president's own party. This is not a news cycle. This is a constitutional crisis unfolding in real time before our eyes. What happens in the coming days will determine whether the office of the presidency has any enforceable limits. The evidence is documented, the line has been crossed. Now, we discover if accountability still holds meaning in the United States of America. The stakes have never been higher. The evidence has never been more tangible. The crisis is now. What happens next will decide the future of the Republic.